Good evening, everybody. Hello, good evening, everyone. If you're planning to speak on any items on or not on the agenda, please make sure you fill out a speaker slip, which is right over there near the door. And anybody who's receiving a proclamation or a certificate tonight, the Millbrae Art and Craft Show winners, the mayor will call your name and you'll be able to when you're ready, we'll go ahead and hit record. So, are you ready for us to hit record?
Go ahead, please.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the June 25th, 2024 Millbrae City Council meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. It's City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Snyder.
Present.
Councilmember Pappen.
Here.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Here.
Mayor Fung.
Here.
All members of City Council are present.
Thank you. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance for those who are able.
Pledge allegiance.
Thank you. And for those who are interested in speaking under public communications for item not on tonight's agenda, you must raise your hand on Zoom or submit your speaker slip to the City Clerk by 7:15 p.m. tonight. And for all other items, that you can raise your hand when the item is being presented. First up is a ceremonial presentation and proclaiming the month of July as Park and Recreational Month. I think we have our Recreation Director, Hannah Moran, tonight here accepting this proclamation. Would you like to join us at the podium? Take your time.
Thank you all. So we are excited to go ahead and accept this proclamation. I have a couple of staff with me tonight as well. So we have Emmanuel Rosales and Joanna Hafter. And I just wanted to give you guys a few recreation updates from us. First, of course, we always, for Parks and Recreation, although we are the Recreation Department, we always want to say thanks to Public Works and the Parks Department because we work very closely with them. So we are currently working on Marina Vista and Bayside Manor. And those are exciting projects that we know City Council is very well aware of. We do know that Marina Vista is on track to be completed end of October. And I do see the proclamation on here now as well. But on the recreation side, we just want to say that we're so grateful for the Recreation Center. As of June 11th, it has now been open for 2 years, which is really, really exciting. And there's lots of people who work in recreation, but our full-time staff consists of just me and 7 others. And again, Joanna and Emmanuel are 2 of those. Emmanuel mostly works with our youth sports and our adult sports, as well as our garden, and Joanna is newly working with our seniors, although she's been with us for a very long time. And then we also pulled some reports in May that just shows that we are having about a 5% increase in senior program offerings. We expect these percentages to go up by the end of the fiscal year as well. And another number is a 15% increase in summer camp offerings for summer camp 2024. So that's a big increase for us. And part of that had to do with our school negotiations. And again, because of the increase in offerings, we also have seen a large increase in program participants. So for our senior programming participants, we've had a 49% increase since last year. So that's a big number, and there's also a 47% increase in participants for drop-in classes for our senior programming as well. So that's a pretty significant number. We had a 6% increase in Millbrae summer camp registrations. Again, this is a report pulled in May, and we expect that to be even higher at the end of our fiscal year's report. And then we had a 20% increase in elementary and middle school participants this year as well. So that's a lot, thanks to Emmanuel who's here tonight. Our rentals are through the roof, and it's been a 93% increase this year in our rentals. And so again, that's a lot due to our beautiful recreation center that we're all very excited for. And we also have had a 12% increase in our contracted classes. So it's been a very big year for us. And so we're grateful not only to our full-time staff, but all the part-time staff that you do not see tonight. So again, with recreation, it takes a lot of people to make everything happen, and every single one of the full-time staff have a huge team of part-time staff behind them as well. And we're all so happy to be part of Millbrae Recreation's department, and again, work alongside Public Works with the Parks Department. Another thing that we wanted to just highlight is we are also involved in many special events in Millbrae. But one we want to highlight tonight is our 4th of July celebration. And so at the end of this proclamation, we do have flyers that we will be handing out to everybody because we want everybody to come to 4th of July. It is the first time it's happening in Central Park. It's our Beach Brews and Vine series. There will be two bands performing that day, and as well as a bunch of carnival games for the first time for 4th of July, and so that's going to be over at Central Park. So those are just some of the highlights from the recreation side, and so I think I read the proclamation. Or do you?
No, we have the proclamation
Okay, thank
here,
you. I
and
was
so
like, I don't know, it came in front of me, so thank you very much.
just 1 second here. Councilmember Schneider will have a moment afterwards. I just want to thank the entire Park and Rec staff for everything that you do every day. You have a very efficient staff, a sizable staff, but very efficient. And yet, one of the most important things that you do every day is keeping our community engaged, keeping them entertained, giving them opportunity to gather and come together on many different, recreational activities, and just keeping the community informed, keeping all the constituencies informed in what's going on in the city every day. So that's wonderful in all you do, and I want to thank the entire Park and Rec staff for all your commitment. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations to staff. I wear a couple of other hats in the city, which means I'm always interacting with Park and Rec staff, and I just want to say a huge thank you. I know Roland's not here tonight, but Roland and Jeffrey too, as well as everyone, especially for Halloween last year, where we rolled out the first event with piñatas, which was hugely successful. But I'm going to go on public record here. Miss Hannah, our Park and Rec director, grew up in a part of San Francisco that does not have a swimming pool, and I grew up teaching swim lessons. And I hope that you will be my guest when San Bruno has their soft opening of their rec center and pool next month, because I commit here and now to giving Hannah free swim lessons until she can do 100-yard IM.
Yes.
So on record for that, again, I grew up working for 4 different city Park and Rec programs. I couldn't be prouder of all of you.
Councilwoman Cahalan.
I want to say congratulations on all that growth and engagement. I think it's a testament to the hard work that you all do into creating programs that our community wants to engage in, from the youth sports to the senior programs. My kids have been a part of the youth sports. You've coached my boys. Recreation's kind of the heart of the community, bringing us together in the park and sports and the arts. So thank you so much for all that you do. And I'm really grateful to be on the Park and Rec Commission and the Youth Advisory Committee that both fall in your group. Growing up in the city I grew up in, my dad was on the Park and Rec Commission for many, many years. So this is something important to me and close to my heart. So thank you for all that you do to create community and engagement in our city.
Excellent. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Just going to say ditto. I really want to thank you all for caring for our kids, from 0 all the way up to 100 and plus. Just having the care as if you're caring for a family member. That's what you see when you're around the rec center, from the programs to the food programs, having our seniors there. They know that they're cared for. So more than anything, thank you for that, and thank you for embracing the so many different cultures and community members we have in our community.
Excellent. So would you like to join us at the podium for a photo?
Hannah lost her cool scooter.
I was a lot faster last.
She's here. Okay, next up, we now turn to the part of the agenda tonight that we get to recognize some of the winners in the Millbrae Art and Craft shows that we had a few weeks ago. And I think many of us have attended at the Recreation Center for the Art and Craft shows. And it just goes to show how creative our community is and all the talents that we have from the youth, from the elementary school, and all the way to the adults. And we're here to celebrate the elementary category. The first place is Nathan Ching. I think we have Pauline Chair accepting on his behalf today. Would you please join us here up? And we also have the middle school category, which is the first place is Kaylee Yee. We also have the adults category. We have first place is Teresa Azola. We have second place Eleanor Zamosa. And also third place is Rachel Rattle. Would you please join us at the podium? Just join all of us, please. Would any one of you would like to say a few words? No? Nobody? Nobody's volunteering.
Thanks for having
Go
the
ahead.
opportunity here.
Just get into the mic. Just get close to the mic.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm attending on Nathan's behalf. He's out of the town, spending summer with his grandparents. But thanks for having us here and the opportunity to share the joy with everyone. Yeah.
Excellent. Go ahead. Whatever you like, Kaylee.
Thank you to my parents for encouraging me to join.
Very good. Just so you know, I've witnessed personally many of the work that you put together, and I'm very proud of you for all the creativities and how beautiful your artworks are. So congratulations. Very well done. Yeah. All right, would you please join us at the podium here for all of us who would like to, would you like to say a few words as well? Do you want to say a few words?
Well, I think it's very nice that you do sponsor the art show every year. It's lovely to see. I love to see that the children's work especially was just wonderful. So I hope you keep doing it all the time because it's very nice and it really encourages the young people to put themselves out there.
Excellent. Any council member have any comments for any of our winners? Okay, all right. Would you please join us at the podium? Excellent. Thank you, everybody. And then next up, we got item number 2, which is the agenda overview and some staff briefing. Assistant City Manager Isabel Carlos, would you please do us the honor tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. Isabel Carlos, Assistant City Manager and Human Resources Director for the city. And tonight, I'm filling in for Tom Williams, a city manager who took just a couple days off, and he'll be back. I do have a couple of announcements this evening. Upcoming events, starting with Tuesday, July 2nd. Come join us at the Millbrae Recreation Center lounge, we're going to have coffee, pastries, and storytelling by our very own Millbrae residents. They're going to come and share their life stories, and they're going to bring the community together in doing that. There is no RSVP that is necessary. Everyone is welcome to join. And if you would like to share stories, please contact the Millbrae Recreation Center for future storytelling. We also have, as mentioned by Director Hannah, our 4th of July, which is right around the corner. We invite everyone to come out and join our 4th of July celebration at Central Park. As mentioned by Director Hannah, it's going to be the summer concert series, Beats, Brews, and Vines. And this year, we're going to have 2 bands. The first one, A Cut Above, and also Bust the Groove. There's going to be dancing, soaking in the sun, and lots of fun on that day, as she mentioned. Then on Tuesday, July 9th at 11:30 a.m., come join us at the Millbrae Recreation Center for our monthly luncheon that celebrates senior birthdays. There's going to be great conversation, food, and a classic game of bingo. This event is going to be held at the Great Hall, and you must RSVP by July 3rd. There is a $5 fee to participate, but it's free if it's your birthday month. Then on Friday, July 12th, be sure to join us for our very popular Millbrae Goes to the Movie series. Showing this event will be Disney's movie Wish. So don't forget to bring your blankets, your chairs, and meet us at Central Park. The movie will start promptly at sundown, which is approximately 8:30 p.m. that evening. And finally, join us in kicking off the summer with a walk around Millbrae Central Park on July 18th. The walkers should meet at the Millbrae Recreation Center lobby at 11 a.m. And thereafter, everyone is welcome to stay for refreshments after the walk. This concludes the announcements for the evening and the staff briefing.
Thank you so much, Assistant City Manager Carlos. Next up, we've got the approval of minutes. We've got the special meeting minutes on June 11th, 2024, and a regular meeting minutes of June 11th, 2024. These two are action items. Any council comments or discussions? I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
We got a motion from we got a motion from Councilmember Ann Schneider and a second from Councilmember Cahalan. City Clerk?
Councilmember Snyder?
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen? Yes. Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Fung?
Aye.
The two sets of minutes passed by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you so much. Next up is oral report from City Committee and Commission Chair. We don't have any tonight. And then after that, we have public communication. This portion of the agenda is reserved for those who wish to comment on any item not appearing on tonight's agenda. However, speakers must address subject matters within the jurisdictions of the City Council. Every speaker will have 3 minutes. The speaker is to address directly to the entire council, not individual council members nor the public. All remarks shall be delivered in a respectful manner. There shall be no debate nor correspondence, both from the council members and the staff with the speaker. Questions, if any, shall be directed to the mayor, who will determine if or in what manner an answer will be provided. We will first begin with an in-person speakers and then followed by speakers online.
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a question for council.
Yes.
In lieu of sitting through public comments that may be personal in matter or attacks, is it appropriate for me to step away if I choose so? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready? Okay, we've got 8 speaker slips here for in-person, and we got 1 online hand raise. First up is Mr. Tom Brocher, followed by Jean Bear.
Good evening, council members. As you know, my name is Tom Brocher, and I've been a Millbrae homeowner for the past 30 years. I'm here tonight to oppose the city's unsuccessful lawsuit against San Mateo County based on Article 34 and the attempt to recall 2 of our city council members. Over the past year, there has been much discussion in this chamber about the safety concerns of our citizen and the limited fiscal resources of the city. My question to you as a council is, did the city's expensive and unsuccessful lawsuit productively address any of these concerns? Regrettably, no. Might I suggest that the nearly $300,000 that the city has spent on this failed lawsuit would have been much better used to fund another sheriff's deputy or other public safety measure? Is this really about the city's loss of the transient occupancy tax? The proposed conversion of 3 other Millbrae hotels, the Westin, the Aloft, and the Westin, the El Rancho, the Aloft, and the Westin, will result in much greater loss of TOT than the conversion of the La Quinta. And yet, these other conversions have not resulted in any organized opposition. And so I ask again, is this lawsuit really the best use of our taxpayer dollars? In my view, the attempt to recall 2 of our city council members is another misuse of the city's assets and is an attempt to reduce the diversity of valuable and important viewpoints on the city council. Millbrae is a diverse community, and our residents have diverse and differing opinions about how to address important issues facing our community. It is not helpful to our community to stifle the voices of those who have different opinions and useful perspectives on these issues. We can only address our challenges by listening to all voices. I respectfully urge the council to work together to support a diverse and vibrant Millbrae. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brocher. Jean Baer, followed by Mr. Ken Smith.
Good evening. My name's Jean Barr. I live across the street from the La Quinta. As a Millbrae property owner, a taxpayer, and a voter, I strongly object to the city spending any more of the city funds or staff time on a lawsuit to invoke provisions of an outdated article of the state constitution that I believe should be repealed by voters in the fall election. The shameful history of Article 34 is well known, and it saddens me to be living in a community that would rely on that article as an instrument of public policy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Ken Smith, followed by Mr. Steve Rinaldi.
Good evening. Thank you very much for all your hard work that you do every day, council members and staff. We truly appreciate it here as residents of Millbrae. You guys are just the best. We appreciate it. I'm going to talk about the appeal for Article 34. I completely disagree with the last 2 speakers that came up. The lawsuit needs to be appealed. San Mateo County has violated Article 34, our constitutional rights. It's not complicated. If you're going to put a public housing basically into a city like Millbrae, and it's going to have financial impact, we get the right to vote on it. That's just it. It's not complicated at all. Other cities, the county, I want to back up one second. The county cannot substitute dealing with us by dealing directly with the staff, with the MOU. That's backdoor dealing. We, the citizens, get the vote on this. No one else. The county bullied Redwood City, San Mateo, Half Moon Bay with their public housings. They didn't have a chance to even voice their concerns about it. This cannot happen in Millbrae. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ken. We got Steve Rinaldi, followed by Joe Teresi.
Good evening, Millbrae City Council, Millbrae residents, and city staff. I'd like to congratulate the 3 council members that have supported Millbrae in pushing back on San Mateo County with their aggressive bullying with the La Quinta project. I fully support the appeal of the Article 34 lawsuit. Article 34 is our constitutional right to determine what's best in our community. San Mateo County knows that they can't stand against Article 34, and Judge Feynman's decision is an absolute disgrace. So I'm looking to the council right now with a request that when you vote, which has to happen within 30 days of the ruling from the 17th, that you vote publicly, because I want to see which council members are going to deny me, my family, my neighbors, and the rest of the residents of their constitutional right to vote on that project coming in. As a resident that's been here for 43 years, lives 2 blocks away from the La Quinta, grew up playing on San Juan across from the park of Lomita Park, K-5 elementary playground, and across from the La Quinta, I have a lot of experience with that location, and I find it absolutely disgusting that the county hid the fact that they're going to allow people with active substance abuse issues residency to that facility and allow them to do drugs in the facility. It's in the Encampment Relocation Fund Round 3 application that the county executive's office filed less than 2 months ago. Just do a Public Records Act or come see me. I'll give it to you. You can read it verbatim for what they say. So I'm looking forward to the county doing the right thing, or the city doing the right thing, and appealing on Article 34. The lawsuit's only cost $239,000 so far. Millbrae City staff has projected that over 20 years, we're going to take a $30 million loss because of this conversion, and that's absolutely wrong. That's money that could go to us residents. We're one of the most financially strapped within the county. So when I look at $239,000 versus $30 million over 20 years, that's minuscule. And in regards to residents being stifled with their voices, let me just remind people that more people signed the petition to recall each candidate within their district than they actually got votes to be seated. So let democracy play out, and let's see what happens with the recall. I 100% support it. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Joe Turisi, followed by Nathan Chen.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Joe Turisi. I live on Bluebell Court. I strongly encourage Millbrae residents living in Districts 2 and 4 to vote no on the recall of Angelina Cahalan and Maurice Goodman. Regularly scheduled elections are the appropriate means for expressing one's opinions about the performance of political office holders and provide ample opportunity to choose between competing candidates. Recall elections should be reserved for serious instances of illegal activity, fraud, or deception. This is certainly not the case here in Millbrae. Policy discussions and disagreements are a sign of a healthy political environment where office holders are empowered to express their views based on their careful analysis of issues through thoughtful deliberation. Office holders should be judged on the total breadth of their service to the community. Things like regular attendance and participation at public meetings, responsiveness to their constituents, willingness to listen, thoughtful questions and comments on council agenda items, cooperation with and respect for their fellow council members, not on a single council policy issue or vote. Angelina Cahalan and Maurice Goodman have served their districts and all Millbrae residents with dignity, honesty, and commitment to public service. They deserve the opportunity to finish out their full elected terms and only then face the judgment of voters in the next regularly scheduled election. It should also be noted that supporters of the recall, an action supposedly based on concerns about fiscal responsibility, have already cost the city of Millbrae $155,000 for a needless recall election and close to $300,000 for a misguided lawsuit. Please reject this unjustified use of the recall process by voting no in the City of Millbrae recall election. Since I have a minute or so too, I'll just echo some of the other thoughts and say that I am also opposed to the lawsuit, and I would encourage the council to cease more action on that and further waste of public monies on an endeavor that's probably not going to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Nathan Chen, followed by Ms. Gray Gunsell.
Good evening, City Council. I wanted to share some thoughts that are on my mind, and I hope will be on your mind when you consider whether to continue this lawsuit against San Mateo County. First is our relationship with the county at large and the other electeds here. I feel like the City Council transmitted the concerns of our citizens to the Board of Supervisors faithfully, and were able to secure from the county additional public safety guarantees and spending, as well as replacement for transit occupancy tax revenue that they did not extend to South San Francisco in the very same meeting for their home key conversion. What is the county going to think if we continue to pursue this lawsuit against them? How is our relationship now already after this initial round of litigation? The second thing is, I know how important it is for Millbrae to have representation on regional boards. I've heard you all talk about it at length and the kind of influence that has over money that our city needs to develop sustainably. What will county electeds think of us if we continue to pursue this litigation against the county? More broadly about our reputation in general, I know Millbrae is a multicultural city that's welcoming and diverse and celebrates all people. But that does not feel to me like how we're being covered in the national and local media when they talk about Millbrae. All they can talk about is this lawsuit and the fact that we are suing to prevent permanent supportive housing from going through. Finally, and I think this is probably the most important point, is the opportunity cost of pursuing this litigation. I have noticed that city council agendas this year have seemed a little light to me, not very many items in open meetings. What items that I have seen are related to La Quinta, and there's also been a lot of closed session meetings related to this litigation. So it seems like this is taking up a lot of council time, and by extension, staff time. What are some of the things that I've heard you articulate as priorities? I've heard each of you mention a desire for climate adaptation, development downtown, achieving social equity, bringing more attention to the east side, and establishing sustainable childcare. These all seem like laudable goals. Are we potentially sacrificing the achievement of these goals if we continue to pursue this litigation? Just some things that I would like you to consider before you're making this decision on whether to continue the next round of litigation with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Ms. Gay Grinsell, followed by Jimmy.
I'm going to pull this down. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I did it first then. My name is Gail Grinsell, and Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I also appreciate your work. The last council meeting, I came to address the issue of vandalism at the library and your communication with us about that issue. And since then, I have read nothing except comments by one council person on Nextdoor. And those comments were very different than the comments that were told to me by people who work at the rec center every day. The damage was quite extensive. It required that the rec center, the upstairs, be closed to people for a period of time. When it reopened, the only seniors were allowed to go upstairs, not young people. So my questions are, why did this happen? This is our money that paid for the rec center, our money that had to repair the damage that was done, and I would like to know what consequences were given to the people who caused the damage, because I understand that they were all identified on camera. They know who they are, who their parents are, if they were young people. And I think this is information that the taxpayers and citizens of Millbrae deserve. I also would like to support the continuation of the lawsuit about La Quinta. And as you proceed, there was a grand jury report in San Mateo County issued in the last several days. I read about it online today, about the effectiveness of the Home Key project, how much the county has spent, and I think that that is what you should consider, how much it costs and what the results are that have been achieved. And I also think you need to look at in other places where Project Home Key has been opened, what has been the effect on the fire department, the emergency ambulance calls, police, sheriff's department. I think those are very important considerations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Grinsell. Jimmy, followed by online speaker.
Good evening, City Council. Also over 35 years, homeowner, resident of Millbrae, just for the people who may not know. I am here to bring to your attention the distress experienced by many families in Millbrae due to the ongoing conflict in Gaza. The severity of the situation has left community members in a state of deep mistrust, impacting their ability to carry on with their daily lives and attend meetings such as this one, which serves as a painful reminder of their ongoing suffering. We are advocating for the Council to consider a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages from all sides, and the provision of unrestricted aid to Gaza. It is concerning that the Council appears ready to prioritize a resolution to overturn a long-standing voter-approved term limits, which would benefit the current Council members, while conveniently disregarding the wishes of its own community members for a ceasefire resolution. We urge you to recognize the gravity of the situation and to take prompt action to address the humanitarian crisis affecting our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Go ahead, online speaker. We'll call the one that is raised their hand on or before 7:15.
The speaker is Grace X. Please accept the unmute.
Yes, hello, this is Grace Wilson. First, I would like to suggest that somebody on the council be a leader tonight and control the meeting, immediately stopping council members that lack self-control and misuse council comment time for a personal vendetta. That would help save me from having to add to my official complaint, which I emailed to the city on Sunday night. Specifically, the complaint is 7 pages long and includes over 20 exhibits. It is for ethics breaches and constitutional rights violations committed by Maurice Goodman at the last council meeting, as well as at 2 council meetings in September 2023. At that time, council comments were inappropriately used to attack me and tell me to stay online as a grand poobah of the trolls if that's all I could do, or to file an official complaint. So I did. I have requested that the city email me confirmation of my complaint, but I have yet to receive any verification from any of you. It is a high likelihood that Councilmember Goodman will be recalled in about a month, but I will not be satisfied if the city claims that my complaint is moot at that time. For Goodman to misuse and abuse his position in this forum to be a bully and attack me is unconscionable. As a public figure, he needs to learn that his behavior will be examined, but for such things as failure to pay credit card debt, child support, spousal abuse, etc. All politicians are held up to a higher standard and their behavior is examined. He is no exception. I expect accountability for any behavior that you find that he violated in regards to my complaint. Thus, I respectfully request that my complaint be reviewed swiftly and action taken to hold Maurice Goodman accountable. Thank you for my time.
This is the only one that has raised hand on or before 7:15.
At 7:15, only Grace X had her hand.
Okay, so that is the end of the public communication tonight. Thank you, everybody, for their comment. Moving on to consent calendar. Item number 5, receive and file monthly general fund financial report for the period ending May 31st, 2024. Item 6, adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to execute an agreement with the County of San Mateo to provide Office of Emergency Services District Coordinator Services in an amount not to exceed $62,088 for the period of July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Number 7, adoptions of a resolution authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the First Amendment to the agreement for professional services with Cintas Corporation. Item 8, adoptions of a resolutions authorizing the city manager or designee to sign professional services agreements with the West Coast Code Consulting, Inc., WC3, and TRB and Associates, Inc., TRB, for on-call building division staffing, plan check, and inspection services in a total amount not to exceed $6 million for a 3-year base term, with 1 2-year options to extend the contract. Item 9, approval of Recreation Center Greg Hall, Fitness Center use and fee waivers for the Philippine Medical Society of Northern California, Fashion with a Mission show on November 16, 2024. Item 10, approval of a fee waiver of $60,930 in rental fees for the use of David Jacuti Community Room and funding in the amount of $10,000 for self-help for the elderly for a 1-year period ending June 30th, 2025, to continue the senior lunch program 5 days a week. Item 11, consider the reappointments to the Park and Rec Commissions, Sister City Commissions, Economic Vitality Advisory Committee, and Senior Advisory Committee. Do we have anyone who wants to pull any item from the consent calendar? Okay. Any council comment or discussions or the staff? Okay. All right. Then otherwise, I'll entertain a motion if anyone would like to make one.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion with one caveat.
Okay.
At the end, assuming that we approve number 11, if you could please announce and congratulate all of the reappointments.
Absolutely.
So they get to hear their name at a council meeting.
That would be nice to have.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Ann Schneider and a second from Councilmember Cahalan. Any other further comments? City Clerk, would you please?
I want to note there's a hand raised online, but I'm not sure if it's for consent.
Yeah, well, if there's a comment, we can take a public comment on. Is it? So let's just confirm the item. Just confirm the comment intended is for one of the item on the consent calendar.
Stella L., if you could please keep your hands raised if you intend to speak on consent, or if you want to lower your hand now if you want to speak on another item. All right, I will go ahead and unmute you now. Stella L.
Hi, my name is Stella Lau. Good evening, City Council. We urge the City Council to appeal Judge Feynman's verdict in the lawsuit.
Hold on. Excuse me. Pause. We need to take a pause. Stella, we already passed public communications. We are on consent calendar. Item number 5 to number 11. The discussion that you wanted to talk about does not belong on these agenda items. So I would like to ask that you come back in the next council meeting of a public communication. All right. City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Thank you. Councilmember Snyder?
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman?
Aye.
Mayor Fong?
Aye.
The consent calendar passed by the vote of 5-0.
Okay, so let me just bring up the names. Hold on one second. Just need to bring up the item here. Okay, so here are the committee and commission members who is returning that we have chosen to reappoint tonight. I want to congratulate Commissioner John Kiefer, Steve Henderson, Jordan Miranda on the Park and Rec. The sister city, we have Kathleen Kimura, Eileen Lee, Akato Soda, and Eunice Denley. And we also have John Muniz. And for the Economic Vitality Advisory Committee, we have Kathleen Gurin, Vernon Bruce, and Sunny Au Young. And City Advisory Committee, we also have Rochelle Mullen, Molly McBride, Mary Allen Pellegrini, and Mimi Lee. Congratulations to all of you who continue to serve our city every day on our committees and commission. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Of course. All right. Assistant City Manager, we're ready for the next agenda item on item number 12.
Mr. Mayor, our Finance Director, Mike Sung, will present this item tonight.
Director Sung, get closer to Mike.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Carlos. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Vice Mayor, and Honorable City Council members. Today I'm here to talk to you about the vote results for the Millbrae Fire Assessment. So we actually got a total number of ballots counted. We had 2,876 out of 6,882 sent, which was about a 42% response rate. Just as a comparison to the February election, which was 36%, it was a better turnout this time around as well. As a result, the assessment passed with the weighting of 60.3% to 39.7%. This is actually very, very close to the actual numerical amounts of yes votes versus no votes, which is 60.5%, with a total assessment amount of $499,019 versus 39.5%. Which had a total assessment amount of $328,128. A total of 1,739 yes votes and 1,137 no votes. We also received 64 ballots, but they could not be counted as they either did not have an actual signature or they did not have a vote marked down. There were people that had sent in a few ballots that signed it but didn't really vote. So the reauthorization, just as a reminder, is for 10 years. It would be for fiscal year 24-25, the next fiscal year, through fiscal year 2033 to 2034. Just a little bit more background information. We didn't get any checks this time. I'm very happy that nobody sent in checks. We reminded people. We sent back the 10 checks to the people that actually sent them. I personally contacted about 7 of them, and the other 3 back, so pretty sure they received it, so we're really glad that they got that. Also, just so you know, from the previous votes in 2014, the weighted total was about 57 to 43, so this assessment actually passed at a higher rate than the So next steps, the resolution is adopted by council tonight is to transmit the new resolution to the county along with the list of assessment properties for fiscal year 24-25. So the county requires that you actually have a resolution that's signed before they can actually put something onto the county property tax assessment and direct charges roll. So that's something that we would need to provide the county. The other thing that's relatively new that we had talked about before is the Citizens Oversight Committee. So for the Citizens Oversight Committee, staff's recommending we're looking at an odd number, probably 7, 1 from each district to be nominated perhaps by each council member for the district, and then 2 at large to be nominated by everybody. We're going to have a little bit more information come mid-July to mid-August, or probably looking at about perhaps 2 more informational meetings as well. for the community and also interested candidates. We're going to go through the regular protocols to get this new committee set up. And have a lot more information, I think, by that period of time. So that's what it's kind of looking like. I'm going to suggest, at least initially, to have this committee probably meet about twice a year, kind of to correspond with how the property tax assessment and direct charges rolls are paid, which you usually do around December and April. So maybe sometime in December and sometime in June. That's kind of what we're looking at, twice a year. So our recommendations to adopt the attached resolution authorizing the implementation of the recently approved fire suppression assessment. And with that, open for any questions.
Go ahead. Councilmember Ann Schneider.
Thank you, and Mr. Sung and staff, congratulations. I was at the Bay Area Water Board policy meeting that day when the announcement came through, and it was such a huge, huge relief. So thank you to the voters of Millbrae on that. Question. You talked about there'll be a protocol that we'll use for filling the 7 slots, 5 as a district and 2 at large. The only other time we've used a model like that was for the committee to select or decide if there should be a commission for social equity. And basically, it kind of went past city council at all. Will any of us have a say in who might be representing the district that we represent?
I believe the intent was to have each council member look through the pool of candidates for their district.
Oh, okay, good on that. And then I love our committees and commissions, but sometimes we have people that don't necessarily have a background. Will we be trying to get people with a background? And if so, what would be those backgrounds that would be the best for keeping an eye on dollars? Which is kind of self-explanatory.
I think would recommend kind of a more diverse approach to look at everything, not necessarily just property owners, but open to all residents, businesses, groups as well. I mean, there's various groups that are represented by the fire assessment in itself.
Okay. My concern would be too that somebody that actually has maybe some experience with first responders, especially fire department in this case, be on it. We have a number of retired firefighters here in Millbrae from multiple agencies on that, and they could possibly bring a good perspective to that too. And if not, then somebody for the citizen group from CERT. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Councilmember Pappen.
I just want to thank all the property owners that supported this. It really means the world to the community and our ability to provide really precious services. So I know it's always kind of painful, but in particular, Green Hills Country Club, the school district this time, people who didn't necessarily vote last time, and even Mr. Van Avery, thank you very much for your support on this. It is a kind of a group effort, and it's greatly appreciated in order to keep our city safe and our community growing strong. So just wanted to give a personal thank you to everybody who participated and voted yes, and we know who voted no, because this is the one time you can see who voted no. We look forward to working with everybody, though, because the services are citywide. So thank you very, very much.
Mr. Vice Mayor, anything? Okay. I just wanted to thank all the property owners, just echoing some of the comments made, including some of the key property owners, the school district as well, who participated in this process, in just keeping some of the most vital services for the city. You know, we said this many times, we have a balanced budget, thanking to our property owners and our constituents who understand and supported some of these very important initiatives that the city want to just keep our fire services strong. And this passing is extremely important for all of us, for the health of the city moving forward, keeping our response time low, and just all over the city, keeping the city these vital services more available to everyone who needed it. And as We all know the entire California is experiencing challenges on insurance, home insurances, rising cost of home insurance, and this will certainly be one element to make sure that these vital services continue to be available and therefore justifying better insurance rate for our homeowners as well. So thank everybody who voted yes and supported this monumental effort, and also the staff who worked very hard to outreach all our residents, bringing people together, answer all the questions and getting everybody educated on this process. So thank the staff for all your effort there as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike Sung.
You're welcome, but it was extremely, it was made possible by a huge group effort, attorney's office with Mr. Connor in here, the clerk's office. They helped count the ballots, and everybody else here at City Hall, the admin, as well as the fire department over at CCFD. They were very instrumental as well. And there was a lot of participation this time, as you had mentioned before. School district, BART, they're actually a pretty decent sized landowner here as well. So, group effort.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mike Sung. All right, so I think this is an action item. I think we need to accept the report and also file the, give us a little detail here.
The resolution.
The resolution? All right, so we'll take a motion. Any council members?
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution.
There we go. We have a motion from Councilmember Cahalan. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second from Councilmember Pappen. City Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Certainly, Mayor. Councilmember Snyder.
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Fung.
Aye.
The City Council adopt the resolution for the approval and implementation of the fire suppression assessment for fiscal years 2024 through fiscal year 24-25 through 2033 through 34 by the vote of 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 13, discuss and provide directions regarding a request on City Council term limit. Assistant City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item was requested by Councilwoman Snyder, and so pursuant to our council protocols, it was placed on the agenda, and I will defer the discussion and give Councilwoman Snyder the floor at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Schneider, you request to have this item to be on the agenda. We'd like to give you the opportunity to educate the public and this council. What would you like to see action done?
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Assistant City Manager. Just a little point of clarification. This issue, I think, first came up in February and March of City Council, both in terms of term limits, elected mayor, districts, and how to do that. At that time, a request was sent to the city attorney to investigate and evaluate what we could and could not do legally in this current situation. And legal counsel did address something back to the five of us, but it was confidential, so I could never talk to anybody about it. And then I brought this up again in May and wrote, I think I brought it up at another time, but then also followed up with a May email to the mayor that it asked for both the discussion of term limits, districts, elected mayor, and to look at that. But if I just need clarification tonight before I go any farther. Tonight, we are only able to discuss elected term limits on that. The problem with not getting the other items, which were actually discussed back in February and March, so within the 60 days, is that the time limit for the November election will open. The opening for candidates will open in a few weeks, and the timing to get it on the schedule is that. So, long story short, term limits. Term limits were put in place in 1997 by then Councilmember Mark Church. The term limits were discussed, and I went back and talked to the one remaining Millbrae out of that group, former councilman, former mayor Darren Quigg, who may be with us tonight with comments of what was going on back in the 90s. It was basically Mark Church, and council went along with it. There had been discussion of how to do it there, and eventually they settled on 2 4-year terms. You can sit out, which would have been sitting out for 2 years, but now under districts, it's sitting out for 4 years. In the meantime, and this is largely, anybody who talks to me, I've been quite blunt on this. In my 9 years, what I have seen is because Millbrae has two-year term limits, it is very difficult for anyone representing Millbrae to get into the leadership roles on regional committees, including and most importantly, City and County Association of Governments, which actually controls millions, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in there. And if you then go and look at where the grant money does or does not come to cities, I'm currently working on another project right now with an intern of looking at the grant funding, and the predominant amount goes to the 4 big cities and then to the cities without term limits. And those of us with term limits are at the bottom of the line. So I have some presentation that today I started, because it didn't show up in the staff report, started looking at who has term limits and who does not. And lo and behold, the first city I went to was Brisbane, and lo and behold, Brisbane is currently discussing this too. They discussed it at their April 25th meeting, and then last week at their June 10th meeting, for a different reason though. So if you could scroll this chart, you can see that this is who has, it has stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about, like who does, how is the mayor rotation and term limits. I've got to move this so I can read it. San Mateo, City of San Mateo has a maximum of 3 consecutive terms in office. Daly City has no term limits. Redwood City has a maximum of 4 years. Both, I think you can sit out and come back. 4 terms, you mean? 4 terms, I'm sorry, thank you, Councilwoman. South San Francisco has no term limits. And within this chart, which hopefully we can, it depends on what happens tonight. Again, no term limits. So far, only San Mateo and Redwood City at 3- and 4-year terms. Next page. San Bruno just went to term limits. And in their case, they can have 3 4-year terms for city council and 6 2-year terms for mayor, which means that any individual could serve 24 years. No, yeah, 24 years. Next. Pacifica has the most conservative term limits. You get 2 terms, period. There have been council members in the past who did serve a 3rd term because when this went into effect, they had already served a term. But now they are 2 years, period, on that. And I'm going to bring Pacifica back in terms of our financial health. Foster City is very much like Millbrae. It has 2 terms. You can sit out, come back 2 terms. They are currently looking at going to districts. They're much bigger than we are, but they never got the letter. Menlo Park, Burlingame, San Carlos, East Palo Alto, no term limits. And the last page. Belmont, no term limits. No term limits, and they just went to an elected mayor for 2 years, so they went to a 4-district city. Millbrae has the 2 consecutive terms. Half Moon Bay, no terms. Hillsborough, no terms. Atherton, Woodside, Brisbane, Portola Valley, and Coleman, no term limits on that. I haven't had enough time to follow historically what leadership roles. I can only know from my own experience that little towns, that we simply do not get the regional leadership on this. Now, contrary to what someone's opinion, the way this works, my understanding, and legal can please correct me, that this went to the vote of the people in 1996 and implemented in 1997. I don't know, the resolution signed in 97, but it went to the vote of the people at some point, and that's not in the staff report. So 96, 97. To make any changes for Millbrae, it would have to go into November's election. I had talked to the city manager about doing a special election, but with the recall election, that took away any ability to, and the fire assessment, any ability to look at this. And that would mean that it would not actually allow Gina and myself, or Councilwoman Pappen and myself, to vote unless we as a council decide to do something along that lines. But I strongly believe that term limits are hurting Millbrae. When I talk to others around the county, and I've been around long enough now that I can call many other cities, they always are amazed at the cities that have the 2-year term limits. And coincidentally, the worst is Pacifica and then us. And we have the first and second worst roads in the county. We have some of the lowest school funding. We have some of basically most of the financial metrics we are at the low end of. Also, largely because we are predominantly housing on that. So on that, but that's kind of the report tonight. I would love to see us change term limits. It has to go to the general election. It is not something City Council can do. What City Council can do is choose to allow it to go to the general election. If City Council chooses not to, then the public can take and do a petition. The chances of collecting whatever percentage has to be in time for whatever deadlines to the election calendar is slim. The recall election really did get in the way of looking at Millbrae's long-term financial health. And I see this as very much a long-term financial health. Questions?
Any other comment? Councilmember Pappen?
Elaine, so the mayor at that time was Dan Quigg, and he has sent us a statement. Elaine, can you read that statement? Did you get the email?
So the request is for staff to read a comment into the record?
Yes.
Let me open that just a moment, please. An email from Dan Quigg received today.
Former mayor.
Former Mayor Dan Quigg at 6:40 today. Good evening, Mayor, Council members, City Manager. Reviewing term limits on the agenda this evening, yes, I signed the document to place the two-term limit on the ballot. At that time, the council felt comfortable with the two-term limit. Council members were being re-elected for many terms, eliminating the opportunity for new council members. There was a need for limiting terms. There was so much discussion about a 2 or 3 years term. Our decision at that time was for a 2-year term. However, the possibility of a council person to rerun after 2 years. Currently, especially with a district election, it appears that it is not the issue. Please consider removing the 2-term limit provision. Please reevaluate the need for a possible 3-term limit to coincide with the San Mateo County Supervisors. Once again, I'd like to express the need to revert back to an at-large election. I'm available to discuss with council members. Signed, Dan Quigg.
Okay, and just to follow up with that here.
Gina?
Yeah.
I can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. So Dan Quigg was the former mayor who signed off on it back when. I think council, and again, this is not done by the city council. This council will not benefit from this either, as a statement was made inaccurately earlier. Because if it were to be put on the ballot, it would not affect the members up here or the ones that are termed out at all. So I think what was pointed out is important here, 2 factors here. I think we do need a further discussion on the districts overall, but if districts remain here, it does throw it off as to the way the law currently exists. Because you can't, previously, when we had no districts, you ran twice, you were off for 2 years, you could come back if the voters so choose to put you back. Now that would be, you would be out for 4 years because of the different districts here. So the law currently, as established, is off. This council can evaluate whether we keep districts or we don't keep districts and go to a mayor at large. That could be a discussion for the future. But given the current situation, Councilmember Schneider is accurate. We do tend to not be put in the position of regional leadership roles because you develop those relationships over time. And if you don't develop them in your second term, then you're kind of left out of the mix. And those positions are helpful to the city of Millbrae and hopefully helpful to the region overall. So I think it's a consideration here. Again, the voters would be the ones to decide, not the council. This council is just evaluating the current situation and whether something should be put on the ballot in November. So I would tend to agree here that we're currently unbalanced as far as the previous law as it was established in this city because we have districts now. So that's my opinion. Open for other comments or hear for the public too.
Thank you, Councilmember Pappen. Do you have anything to follow up?
Mayor, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you told me an example that is very critical of a regional board that is handling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Would you share that story?
So I serve on Peninsula Clean Energy, and I was fortunate enough to be able to serve on the executive board and subsequently be able to serve on the surplus fund committee, which handles over $300 million of surplus funds. So, it takes time to get to these leadership role, and recently there are some discussions about when the next chair and vice chair need to be reelected too, and so, being able to stay on for a long period of time, because every time the chair turns over, it's at least 2 years. And the vice chairs were expected to become the chair, and after the current chair rotated out. So that's a 4-year cycle for the most part. So for a lot of folks, that's a full term already. So without a third term or a fourth term, there may not be sufficient time and opportunity for us to get into these leadership positions. And some of the other regional board, as other cities, also see that as a sort of a detriment to Millbrae. So it puts us in a major disadvantage position. That is a fact. But to that end, I think we also have to balance the need of the community wanting to see new people being elected to this council as well. New blood is important, new perspective is important, and this is a forever changing city. So all these need to be weighted equally so that we can gain regional representation at the same time, be able to bring in fresh new idea and new blood into this council.
Just clarification. So for Peninsula Clean Energy, the board chair position is 2 years or 3 years?
It's 1 year term, but usually the maximum serve out is 2 years.
Is 2,
at this point.
I thought you had told me 3, which to me was very unusual. Only, and Councilwoman Pappen may know better, CCAG board also goes for 2 years?
Let me.
But everybody else, there's a couple of boards that do this.
Let me clarify that, because some of the previous chair has served for 3 years. And the current chair, Donna Colson, recently put in the policy would limit that to a 2-year term for the chair. And I think it was just the last meeting that we had it in the policy. So, but anyhow, this is one of those opportunities that we need to wait, in compared to the importance of bringing in new council members on a regular basis. So, go ahead, Ms. Cahalan.
I had 2 clarifying questions. One is, what would be if we so choose to try and put something on the November ballot, what is the deadline? What's the time frame?
I didn't go and
we're looking at?
go and check the election calendar, but we're really close.
Yep.
If we were to do it, we're like close.
So to that
So
end,
tonight, we would just be directing staff to bring something back, and then,
so it's an open discussion right now. And we can formulate some kind of an action to have the staff bring back some kind of document or resolutions for us to vote on in the next council meeting, if we so choose, if we can get consensus tonight. Mr. Vice Mayor, you have something?
oh, sorry, I have another.
Okay, I'll get back to you, Ms. Cahalan. Mr. Conneran, do you have some information for us?
Yes, well, I would just suggest that if the council wishes us to, we can return at your next meeting with a description of what needs to be done. There it appears there's a deadline of July 15th for submitting a resolution, but we need to confirm that in terms of, okay, I'm sorry, August 9th.
Yeah.
So there's time.
There's a little bit of time there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of time. We didn't spend the staff time to be ready to answer
Understood.
the question, because that's what your action is tonight.
Correct.
So we will, if the
I wanna make sure-
council wishes us to do that, we will do that work and report.
Yeah, I want to make sure we establish some level of consensus here so we can come up with an actionable item to be brought back in the next council meeting for an official action, but at least we need to come to some consensus here first, before we even spend the staff time to research into it.
Right.
Go ahead.
Clearly, the term limits were adopted by initiative measures, so it would require a measure on this.
It will require the voters'
On the
approval.
ballot. Yep.
All right. Ms. Kahalen.
And just to clarify, while the voters will approve the measure or not, council decides what the measure would be.
Let me clarify that.
Because the measure would say how many years, how many terms, all of that. So council comes up with that proposed measure, and then that's what goes to the ballot?
I'll let Mike clarify that later, but my understanding is the council can come up with a measure to be put on the ballot, or the citizens can also do so.
Yes.
The challenge here with the citizen is that it requires a major organizational effort for them to collect enough signatures in order to be able to place this on the ballot for November election. But the council can choose to do so if we believe we can come up with a measure that we believe the voter would be favorable to.
The voters would consider.
Well, consider.
We can't encourage
Yeah,
them
but,
either way.
yeah, right. My apology. Okay, if that's, answers the question. Okay.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Vice Mayor?
couple questions. So how are leadership positions, because that's a big part of this, like leadership positions, things like that. So how are those positions chosen in CCAG, ABAG, things like that? Can someone speak to that?
They are usually chosen within the, whether it's CCAG or Peninsula Clean Energy or ABAC, among those commissioners. They will choose among that organization for those chair and vice chair position or different committee chair, which will have different responsibility and different
Right.
provisional power.
So like in your case, you were chosen, you're in your first term, third year, right, or fourth year of your first term, and you're in a leadership position, correct?
I think I was chosen on my third year.
No, I'm saying, but third year, but you're in a leadership position. Here we are today.
Correct.
And given, the opportunity to serve again next year or in November, you will carry that same position, if not a greater position of leadership, correct?
That's the assumption.
Expectation, yeah.
That's the assumption.
And so I guess my question is it accurate to state that it can't happen since we're seeing it here in person? So it seems like it can. There might be other reasons why individuals aren't being chosen for leadership positions. And if that is the case, we should also have a clear assessment of our why. Because yes, I think on paper, it should not just be 2 terms. It should possibly be 3 terms. I think that gives an opportunity for individuals to serve. I would say 3 terms and you're done, but having that conversation as a council, whether it's a workshop, inviting community and having that clear discussion about what fits for us as a community. But when we say 2 terms and 2 years off, I think that's still accurate now. Even though we have district elections, individuals could move, and we're just basically as a community saying, yeah, still take 2 terms off. We don't want you moving somewhere and seeing you again for another 2 years. And if you want to stay in your own district, then that would mean 4 years. So there's consequences to everything. But I think understanding our community why, as well as our council's why, because there's a lot of opinions up here and experience and understanding like, hey, yes, I would like to serve, or no, I wouldn't like to serve, or this could benefit our community. So having that conversation and truly understanding the why and the benefits to having 3 terms versus 2 terms, because that does seem very odd, that it's extremely short. It may even seem odd with being such a small town and having district elections. All those conversations can happen, but I think in some of these conversations we've been having early as February, should have happened prior. And now we're trying to fix things that may not look or fit or feel the way we wanted them to. And it takes time to assess it. It takes time to evaluate it. Term limits is definitely timely now at this point to have that conversation. So but I just, more than anything, wanted to have a conversation on the why and truly understanding it. And I think that's all I have to say on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Ms. Pappen, do you have any?
Yeah, to be clear here, that is City County Association of Governments that does, their body elects. There are a whole nother group of assignments, the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, the Air District, all of that stuff, that occurs at the Council of Cities, in which each of the mayors gets to vote, not the rest of the body there. And as the mayors rotate, it becomes very different here. So there's a whole different setup there as far as where committee assignments happen. And that's like, they meet once a month. And that also includes the Transit Authority, which is a big one. And I think Trans too. So some of those leadership positions within the county are decided at a different forum. And those are just the mayors. I will say that at one point in time, we had a council member who was in line to be the chair of CK. But because we rotated the mayor's position, that individual was never able to take the seat. And so that kind of put us at a disadvantage there too. So when we're talking about districts or no districts, or even we get to mayor at large at some point in time, consistency has some benefits to the public and to the region as a whole here. In addition to, it's like, I disagree with the vice mayor. People are not going to move.
I said they would. I said if they wanted to.
District. No, that's not that simple. It does still throw this off as the resolution currently exists. So, and I want to point out, there is always term limits.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the voters.
Yep.
So the voters decide. Each and every person's existence in a city council and elsewhere. So we shouldn't underestimate that. The voters are there, whether it's 1 term, 2 terms, 3 terms, or returning. We always want to keep that at the forefront here. Term limits exist each and every day. So I think this is worth a discussion, and I think the voters should decide. But if we are in the position right now that we are with districts, I think it throws it all off. So I would say that we should discuss this in some, well, I think we need to take some action. The action I would like to see is do away with the districts.
Which I had hoped would have been included in this agenda item so we could look at a package. Sadly, right now, we can only look at one component of another thing. Sorry, Councilman, I jumped on top of you. But the other problem with districts is the mayoral rotation always worked on a top 2 of that election cycle are in line for that. But when you're that could mean that on the election cycle that has 3 elections, they may never be mayor. There's a bunch of things that need to be fixed.
Well, again, I'm confident in the voters deciding whatever. So I think
but there are districts that vote more often than other districts.
Let's one person at a time.
I would just like to point out, if that discussion happens here, and we should go to public comment at some point, but
Yes.
we can do away with districts and do what San Bruno does and let the people decide on the mayor. So that's an option, but that's not before us. Term limits is the only thing before us. So I'd like to hear from the public if we can.
Okay, all right. Any further comment before I open up to the public comment? Okay.
I'm sorry, Mayor, and sorry, Councilwoman Pappen. And just so that the public hears, there are a number of things to fix once we went to district. I tried to add updating the protocol for the mayor in goal setting a year ago, but it didn't make enough points on that. But there's a number of things within our protocol that could be repaired, which in fact Brisbane is likely going to codify more of their mayoral rotation unless they go to an elected mayor. They're still talking about that. And that's why I'd hoped we could talk about all of that tonight. But I agree with everything Councilwoman Pappen said. I also agree that you don't just pick up and move to another district unless you have all the money in the world and can pay the increased property taxes. So most of us are where we are and are not moving on that. And I think that with districts, there is better opportunity for competition because you don't have to raise as much money. But I also think that Millbrae has shown turnover, and the other trend that is happening around not just San Mateo County, but incumbents get beat. I beat 2 people. I beat 2 incumbents to get elected. So, that old world of incumbents are there forever. I think now with social media, with having a local newspaper that covers what's going on, has changed the situation from the way it was in the 90s. And I hate to say that, the one council member who really pushed this then went and moved to Hillsborough. So made the decision and left.
Okay, all right. So let's take some public comment and we can come back and try to hopefully get some convergence here. We've got Mr. Ken Smith, followed by Mr. Steve Rinaldi.
Thank you for having me. So I understand the term limits, but I want to talk about something we can do now and today. And that is the 5 district council members and rotating mayors not a correct fit for Millbrae.
So, Mr. Smith, this agenda item, it's about term limit. So I'd like to ask that if you can stick to the point.
Point is that, okay. I think that, well, the term limits is, I don't have a point for term limits. I wanted to talk about mayor at large and council member at large. And that's what I'd like to see move forward. It doesn't take a resident's election to do that. The council members can do that themselves here. Yes, if you wanted to do a mayor at large, from my understanding, mayor at large and council members at large doesn't take a resident's vote. So that's what I got to say.
All right, okay. Mr. Steve Rinaldi, I'd like to ask the public comments to stick to the topic. Tonight we're here to talk about term limits.
Thank you, Mayor Fung, council, city staff, residents. In regards to the term limits, from my understanding, you guys would have to vote on it during the general election if you adopted a resolution for it. No problem about that. I think maybe 3 term limits would help serve, especially at the regional level. So not going to get an argument on there. But what I would like to suggest in addition is doing away with the districts because they've caused too much divisiveness in Millbrae. We're 3.2 square miles. It's ridiculous to think we need to be carved up into 5 specific districts. The reasoning for it is it limits the talent pool of qualified candidates to run and do the job. Last but not least, I would recommend doing a mayor at large. I recommend that because the mayor represents the whole town. It's not just a ceremonial role. Some people will get appointed to committees via the mayor, and the mayor has the ability to add an agenda item. So that's my comments. Term limits, I'm okay with that, but I would strongly suggest you think outside the box, do away with the districts, and also move to a mayor at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. Jimmy, you good? Okay, thank you. All right, so City Clerk, would you please help call up the online speaker?
Of course, Mayor. The first speaker is Patricia Lamb. Please accept the unmute.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councils. I think what you guys are discussing now on term limits, I know that you guys will have to go out at the general election, but I also want to mention that district election is inappropriate for us. Millbrae is a small city, and this district voting is hurting us. We're small in size, and we cannot compare ourselves with large cities such as San Francisco and San Jose. We have a limited number of folks who would like to run for city council or mayor. I urge you to go back to voting
Can we
at large.
pause? Okay, Patricia, I got to remind the public one more time. Tonight, the agenda item, it's about term limit. It's not about district election. So I just want to make sure that all the public comment sticks to the agenda item and not to deviate from that, please. You have anything else, Patricia, with regards to term limits?
Nope, I've said what I wanted to say, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lam.
Next speaker is Karen iPhone. Please go ahead and state your name for the record.
Hi, Karen Lobo.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'd like to support you exploring removing the two-term limit. We should align ourselves with other cities in the county that don't have such restrictive term limits and extend our ability to serve in committees that could lead to improving our financial health and regional leadership. As many stated, it's been detrimental to our community. I also ask that you consider moving to mayor at large. And finally, I didn't get an opportunity to say this, and I'd like to. I support an appeal for Feynman's decision regarding Article 34.
Sorry, Ms. Lobo.
Okay,
Ms.
let
Lobo.
me finish. Let me finish, please. Councilmember Pappen mentioned being confident in the voters concerning term limits. Why not public housing? Thank you.
Mayor, I did accidentally lower Stella L's hand, so I'm gonna.
Go ahead.
Okay. Stella L, please accept that mute.
Stella, I just want to remind everybody one more time that we're here to discuss term limit at this item 13 and nothing else. I just want to be very, very clear about that.
Hi, this is Stella Lau. I also support removing term limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. That's nice and clear. Okay. Closing public comment? I think we're done with the online speakers. All right, bring it back to the council. Does anybody want to? Ms. Pappen?
I do think we need to address the term limits, but as was noted previously, if we're going to instruct staff moving forward here, I think we should explore the other possibilities that we've mentioned and some of the residents have mentioned as well, which is doing away with the districts and mayor at large, because that will have an effect on, well, I guess you could, it's just, you know, when you're doing the term limits, so I would like to see all three of those addressed.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, Council, could you, I guess, address the ability, I mean, at some point, we were given a response regarding the three. And Councilwoman Snyder already mentioned that we can't talk about it because it was provided directly to us. So is there a way you could speak to that? Because it's almost disingenuous to say, hey, let's talk about something that you've already given us an opinion on.
I would say the council has the ability to waive the attorney-client privilege for that communication.
Mhm.
And I think the best thing would be to schedule a vote on that issue
Okay.
for your next meeting. And if you choose to do that, then,
Okay.
then we can release that opinion.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Schneider.
I'm going to try this and see if this will help us have an early night. If we could vote to direct staff to come back to us at our first July meeting. One, to check the election calendar to make sure that we've timed things. Two, to look at term limits. And what I'm hearing is at least there's flexibility to go to three. I would be more open to 4. Again, I've looked at how many leadership roles the city of Redwood City has had, because first, they're a big city and they're on all the transportations. And unlike airport land use, where we have an automatic seat at the table, I personally think we should have an automatic seat at one of the transportation tables, being the largest multimodal train station. So there's going to be some work on that. 3, in that same, so that would be one staff agenda item. Me personally, I would put a second agenda item on, and we can direct tonight for staff to come back and look at the request from the public, the request from council of the issues involved in going to 4 districts and an elected mayor, or getting rid of districts entirely. And again, I can't talk about what was on the staff report, or the agenda on that, but we could do 2 separate items at our next council meeting with direction on that. And, and do it like that. So it would be 3 or 4 year terms, or no term limits at all. I will, and at that point, then I can talk about what happened at Cal Cities when I attended a workshop on this. The districts have been around a little bit long enough. We're not talking about the big cities, and we're not talking about supervisorial. They've been around long enough now that there's information on how many people are running. Are you getting more candidates or less candidates? Are people getting appointed to seats that have nobody running? That's new information, because the districts have basically been around for about 2 or 3 election cycles on that. So maybe staff could do a little investigation into what does that really do. I think the term limits and districts is to provide opportunity for candidates to run. So if that staff report could include investigating some of that, instead of me being lucky and calling Brisbane to find out, wow, they did all the work.
Right.
Okay.
And thank you, Brisbane.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it doesn't bother me whether it's 3, 4, or as you said, none. But I think what's most important in my message, I wanted to be clear that we have an opportunity for a study session where we can invite the community to come in, give their input, and for us to really dig deep into what we believe. I mean, we all have some sense of experience as elected officials to be able to offer something to the conversation in a way that's meaningful and educating the community as well as ourselves.
Okay. 1 second. Ms. Pappen, and then we'll come back to you.
Can I get clarification on this waiving the privilege? How does that work? I don't think we've ever done that before.
The city council is the client of our firm. And when that privilege is held by the council. So it would be inappropriate for one council member to release something that's attorney-client privilege, but the council as a whole has the power of waiving that.
All right, so why don't we start here?
Can
Can we receive, I've asked for clarification here. Can we
Right.
get some consensus from this council to waive that privilege on the memo?
But before we do that,
We can agendize that for the next meeting.
right, before we,
Absolutely.
correct. Before we do that, first of all, we need to agendize it. Second, just bring about the context why it was why it was privileged information was because it came from originally a threatened lawsuit from Mr. Schenkman.
Right, and there's been additional
Correct.
contact from the attorney that threatened a lawsuit, having read in the news about the council's
Correct.
considering it, had additional comments. So
So,
it was
so
under
the context of that is
under
important.
circumstance that the advice was provided to you in confidence.
And being that remain privileged information, right, is for the purpose of the possibility of getting into another legal exposure, wrangling with Mr. Schenkman, again. Because originally, that was the reason why we go to district in the first place, to avoid that lawsuit. So just want to bring about that context.
So, yeah, I would like to move to address that at the next meeting.
I would support
issue.
that. Do we need to do a separate vote now to address
Well,
it?
We're
you
instructing.
don't have an agendized item to take a vote on.
We cannot vote on that at the
You
moment.
can request, and the city manager, just your normal course of the way things are placed on the agenda, you can request and have that placed on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we need a deeper dive on the risk assessment to expose that information before we choose to do so.
it may be that you want to
Closed session, perhaps?
provide, yes, potentially, and you may want to provide a summary rather than, not necessarily in this instance, but in many instances, when a body is getting advice from council in terms of, the risk of litigation, there may be things that you don't want to make public because it would compromise the ability of the city, but there still may be issues in that communication from council that you do want to advise. So it may be that we want to provide something to the public that explains the situation without necessarily getting into all the details of what the legal exposure might be. In other words,
all right.
that's up to you. If you want to just release, the council has the ability to just release that memorandum, or we can talk about it and you can decide how much that.
I think
don't think it's really relevant for this year, so I think you could, it's not something that has to be rushed.
I think it might be appropriate to schedule a closed session for that discussion alone, to do the risk assessment, given the legal exposure
Sure.
on this topic.
Soon.
Is that soon? Soon.
It has to be soon because we're running into deadlines for all of this.
Of course.
And I would like to be clear here. The original reason, there has been case law since then. So circumstances are somewhat different. So in any assessment that moves forward here, we would probably share this with the public as to where we are and why we are bringing this forward for discussion.
Okay, all right. So, but that is to the district election, which is not on tonight's agenda, which we will address based on the confidential memo that has been provided to this council, and if you were to discuss those items, it would be appropriate likely to
Well,
discuss it
actually,
in closed session. Although this agenda tonight, it's about term limit. And whether or not we shall converge to some sort of a consensus to bring back an actionable item regarding term limit, when the other could come back as a closed session discussion. Ms. Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. My comment goes back to what the Vice Mayor said in terms of public engagement and a study session. The difficulty on this item is usually a study session. You've got drawings, or you've got documents, you've got something to kind of present to the public. There's not a lot to present.
There's no drawing in this one.
Would we, I suppose we could have a study session. I would say a lot of it's anecdotal. The last emergency services meeting, I learned something totally new about yet another budget item that should be coming to us because we're most impacted by the flooding created by SFO, and yet that money goes to the county. So that's it took me 9 years to get there. Wow, on that. That's another reason, but that's not really something you can put in a staff report. So do we need a study session, or can we simply come back and talk about term limits?
So just want to remind everyone, if we were to go into a study session or as a public engagement effort, we're just going to be sitting there listening because we can't comment on it anyway.
Well, it could be before council and then be on the council agenda that same day.
We can schedule a listening session to the community. Certainly, I think that's warranted. And then we can, after we listen, then we can formulate our own opinion and come back for a further discussion.
Just so I could add to that, though, typically we council members are encouraged not to attend these meetings, and then we can't tell stories. So it's another way of trying to legislate with your hands tied behind your back.
I would encourage we sit there to listen without a discussion, but anyhow, Ms. Pappan.
Okay. Look, I don't think there's time for that here. This is a public hearing right now. Okay? The public has made statements here. The public is now aware that we are discussing this. So they will probably read about it in the paper too. So we can encourage anyone who has an opinion about that right now. Please email your thoughts to the council, get that out there. Again, the voters will decide this, not the city council. So we are evaluating this. I don't believe a separate study session is needed for something like that. We are open to comments, and we encourage anyone who has an opinion on this to please write to the city council, let us know what your thoughts are. This is on the agenda to discuss and provide direction. So I think we are providing direction, and there is still an opportunity for the public to participate, which we always welcome and encourage. So I would disagree. You've just heard, we only have till like August 9th, if this is to happen, to have a separate study session. And then, I mean, we saw how some of these public hearings went just on the fire assessment. We had how many public hearings and maybe 2 people or 1 person showed up. So the best thing we can do right now is, I'm pretty sure the media is going to cover this. So it will be out there for our residents to let us know how they feel. So I don't think we should be discussing a study session. I think we should be directing staff on how we would like to proceed here and get the information that we need. I think we've discussed 4 different items, 3 of which were not on the agenda, but we should make a request for future. So I think the idea is let us know what the dates are in order to get something on the ballot for the public to determine here. And we've gotten, our current situation is that we have districts. Now that might, we'll look at that. I think we have some consensus to look at that moving forward here, but we are addressing term limits here. So I think that 3 is better than 2. Right now, you know, we have you, because I think the current situation, just so the public knows, you can run twice, be off for 2 years, and come back, which is what I did, with the grace of the public. Now, because we have districts, that throws it all off. If you are in one district, you would have to wait 4 years to run again, and then we are kind of losing what we're trying to develop here, is to give Millbrae voters the strength and the representation regionally. So I would suggest, my suggestion would be instructing staff to come back to us with the important, what date would this need to get onto the ballot? And then, you know, we should determine what that looks like. I would say at a minimum 3, but that's one opinion, and, you know, we can look at everything. But the public will, again, have the opportunity to let us know how they feel about that, and they will have the final say.
Okay, all right, so we got a few hands here. Hold on a second. So we got Ms. Cahalan, I'll let you speak first, and then we'll go to Vice Mayor after, and then we'll come back to you, Ms. Ann Schneider. Go ahead, Ms. Cahalan.
In terms of staff direction this evening, I agree with asking staff to come back with the important dates and to bring this back as an agenda item for discussion. But I don't think right now we should decide a final decision to just bring back this many years or this limit. I think the follow-up discussion should, when we truly bring that as an agenda item for discussion, is when we should talk about that and narrow that down more specifically. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay, hold on 1 second. Mr. Vice Mayor, and then we'll come back to you, Ms. Ann Schneider.
Yeah, no, I understand the urgency, but it's been decades. And so I definitely get it. It's been a few years, I guess, with the district elections, but the district elections were discussed, and this wasn't discussed. And so all I will say is if I had to choose between an opinionated electorate or an educated electorate, I choose the educated. And I think we need to do all we can to make sure that we're educating our community and our public on what we're doing. A study session is not just a listening session. A study session is a meeting that we're having, and we're being educated as council, given the opportunity to ask questions back and forth and have that only item on the agenda and discuss that in a deep manner with the public present, being able to ask questions. And once that study session is done, we can take action. And that's all I'm saying. And if we choose not to, that's the practice of this council. and it'll be accepted. But we just can't continue to go down the road and think like, hey, we're throwing it in the voters' hands and not giving them the resources and the support to be able to make the best decision, not just for themselves, but for their neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Go ahead, Ann Schneider.
I appreciate what the Vice Mayor is saying. Again, it's a question of timing and staff and what to put into that. Councilwoman Cahalan, you said discussion. Did you mean discussion and action? Because we're talking about July 9th, which is a month to get everything done and turned in and made sure that the language in the measure is written correctly. So did you mean discussion, action? Trying to address the Vice Mayor's concerns, which I do believe, sometimes our staff reports are a little thin. So maybe the staff report can include the options. My training at the City of San Jose was staff reports had multiple options, and my 11 or 13 person council back then would discuss it. Of course, they met every week and they got paid big bucks for that, but maybe our staff report could just have more data in it that might help the public understand this, or this.
Ms. Cahalan?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant. Instead of us deciding tonight on a single option to bring back to us next time, that next time we have multiple options brought back to us for a deep discussion, a thoughtful discussion, an educated discussion, and there decide if there is something we want to bring to the voters and what that would be.
All right.
So, Councilman, I'm sorry, Mayor, my apologies.
All right, so what I was trying to get to is, I'm hearing some convergence and some consensus among, first of all, is to authorize the staff to spend the time, the effort to research this item further, beyond the 2 hours, number one. Is that a consensus to that? I believe there is. Okay, all right, we saw you nodding head here. Second is to bring back some form of resolution for us to vote on and discuss upon with some variables in there, whether it is a 3-term or 4-term or perpetual term. I don't know what's the right term. No term limit. Nothing's perpetual. For discussion.
That would make us kings forever.
For discussion for the next council meeting. Now, I don't want to take away the benefit and the value of having those study sessions. If we so choose, we can discuss the merits of it. Although we're certainly being bounded by Brown Act and not to have discussions among more than quorum in an open setting without scheduling a notice meeting. So, we need to obviously be within the framework of Brown Act here. So when I say I just sit there and listen to the constituency, I don't mean just do nothing but listen, but rather we need to be within the Brown Act. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I think we will authorize the staff to do further research on this item, potentially bring back a resolution that would enable us to put a measure on the ballot for the November to alter the term limit. And the exact alteration that we will be doing will depend on our next discussion. Does that make sense?
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, is the request to bring back a resolution in the next meeting or just further research on the timeline? And you mentioned options. Is the options only in regards to the number of terms that, and what that would look like? Because options is a pretty general word.
Yeah, I think it will come down to how many terms the new limit would be.
And clarification on the resolution, is that for next meeting or for after discussion?
I think we'll bring back the next meeting and then we'll have some more concrete numbers on that.
Do we have an actual resolution if we haven't made a decision?
Well, it's a draft resolution. Obviously, that could change depending on the outcome of that decision.
And once we get it, if we don't like it, we don't have to do it. It's just, you're asking for options staff can provide and.
Yeah.
And the public will have more time to comment.
Right. And then the resolution, just the framework, obviously, we will make changes based on the outcome of that discussion for the next council meeting before we finalize that resolution. If that makes sense, Ms. Cahalan? Yep, all right. Any further comment? Formal motion, yeah, formal motion.
Would be appropriate.
So what I'm hearing is the first motion is to allow the staff to further research the term limit item and to bring back some form of a resolution for us to discuss upon that would extend the term limits beyond the 2 terms. The exact number of terms to be determined based on the next meeting.
And included in that would be the dates at which something would have to be presented to the vote.
Right, the timeline of filing those resolutions to the Register of Voters would certainly need to be researched and brought back for informational presentation.
I'll second that.
Okay? Any further comments? Questions? No? Okay.
Mayor, just before I vote, since I vote first, I was taking notes. On July 9th, we will have the ability to vote to put a measure forward, or if we don't like it, to not.
Then there is none.
We'll
right?
have everything in line in that staff report to be able to move forward at that time.
That is correct.
Correct.
I love this motion in second.
She seconded, I made the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, City Clerk, would you please do a roll call? Is that clear what the motion is, Isabel?
Yes, I believe so. Michael, any other questions? Thank you.
Pretty clear? Okay, all right, go ahead, Elaine.
Councilmember Snyder.
Aye, and thank you.
Councilmember Pappen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cahalan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Goodman.
Aye.
Mayor Funk.
Aye.
The City Council directed staff to further research and bring back a resolution that would extend the term limit beyond the 2 terms. Number of terms to be determined and the timeline of filing. The motion passed by the vote of 5-0.
Thank you. All right, so that wraps up all the agenda item tonight. Moving on to council comment, and this is the section of the agenda tonight where the council comments. Council members serve as representative to various committees and other county and regional entities. The council comment section of this agenda provides council members the opportunity to briefly comment on council businesses, city operations, city projects, community events, and other matters pertaining to city's business. The comments of each council member shall be limited to 5 minutes. Who would like to go first? Do I need okay, we have a hand raised. Ms. Ann Schneider.
I had thought there wasn't that much. Really quickly, emergency services meeting, our regular meeting was canceled by board president, what's his name? The Millbrae Community Enhancement Advisory Committee had a really fabulous adopt-a-spot with at least 12 Leos and a lot of public works staff. Huge thank you to public works staff. We were out there Saturday and weeded and planted 110 plants. It's by Taylor Boulevard, by Taylor, Ashton, and Almanar. But if anybody else, especially those of you on Nextdoor who like to find all the places that haven't been weeded, we have a number of locations in Millbrae. They're public land, and you can adopt them and maintain them, and the city will provide planting for them, all part of making Millbrae look better. And that application is available on the city's website. Cal City's Transportation, Communication, and Public Works met this week. And just so that council knows, there's a big push with federal dollars on broadband. And broadband for San Mateo County will be running down the Caltrain tracks. I think we've already gotten broadband here. We used to have a council subcommittee that worked on it, but just know that most of our meeting last week was all on broadband and then a little bit on e-bikes. And this will segue into Millbrae's Bike Pedestrian Committee meeting about the great concern in the community on e-bikes, especially on the spur trail, but also especially children that cannot get a driver's license but are operating an electric bicycle on city streets. So several of us brought up e-bikes at the Cal City's Transportation Committee, and they did send all of us current legislation that could be looked at. It's growing to be a concern because children are dying and or being significantly hurt, like the young man here in Millbrae. So e-bikes should come up. our own our own bicycle subcommittee here in Millbrae had asked council for ordinances. So I think at their next meeting in July, there'll be more of a discussion of what can we do at the local city council level on that. And it may be coming to council over the next couple of months on that. The other thing that happened at Millbrae's bike and pedestrian meeting was staff came and talked about some grant concepts for large grants. These are $1 million plus grants from San Mateo Transportation Agency. And the concept that was shared with us was a potential to extend the spur trail. So where the water tanks are on Helen Drive, there's actually land behind the golf course, behind the Lamita Hills neighborhood, and up into Unipacera Park. So staff is currently checking to see if it truly meets the criteria for San Mateo TA. This could be several $1 million, but it could provide much more recreation opportunity. If it also helps kids get to school or people get to work, that actually helps the possibility of it getting granted. When I was mayor at Cal Cities, someone attended our Cal Cities breakfast. Her name was Hafsa Kaka, and she is Governor Newsom's cabinet secretary, but she doesn't have that title for homeless. I had invited her down to Millbrae. She got in touch with me Friday, and this was back last October and November. She got in touch with me Friday saying, well, given that there's some decision on Article 34, she apologized for not coming down. Their attorney said, well, given that lawsuit, they shouldn't come. But basically, I felt like I was being I was asked, what am I going to do when I'm termed out? What's the city going to do? And then I was asked why the people of Millbrae are so against Article 34, and I gave them a slew of reasons, which I have typed up on that. Much of it going back into the history that goes right back to the fact that San Francisco has 2 positions on SFO Roundtable and never attend the meetings on that. And yet we are always hit by problems on there. And then the last thing, because I do work in the environmental field, I have been dabbling, especially the 3 weeks I had to lay in bed, dabbling with environmental metrics. So the federal government has one, the state has another. There are a number of other metrics using on that, and I am in discussion with President Biden's staff on getting noise added to the metrics. Millbrae now has 3 significant metrics: pollution, air pollution, traffic, and flooding. But they're all in different categories. If they were all in the same category, we would qualify or have better scoring in grants. And again, this is what I had hoped that the Social Environmental Justice Committee would be working on. But at this point, I'm working directly with President Biden's staff. We'll see if anything comes of it.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to go next? Councilmember Cahalan, please.
Thank you. I just have a few updates. The first, Park and Rec Commission met last week, some significant items. There continues to be conversation about the pickleball courts and the noise. Park and Recreation staff gave updates on we're adding baffling on the courts to help reduce noise and continuing to look at the timeframes. We also had a nice brainstorm discussion around possible locations throughout the city for pet parks. So that was a good starting conversation. Another item, a couple council meetings ago, we had our quarterly update on the Life Moves program. And we also had updates on the Measure K funds that we did not get, and the ARPA funds that are funding our Life Moves program expire at the end of this month. And the county is working to revamp their outreach team, and that the goal is for that to cover what we had. One of the challenges is the gap from when our program ends to when the county's new program begins. I, several weeks ago, reached out to Supervisor Pine's office and have been having conversations with them. Supervisor Pine used discretionary funds to help us start this program in the first place, to show the success that then got us the ARPA funds. He does not want this successful program to end or to struggle for us. So he put it to the Board of Supervisors, and today they approved $150,000 through the rest of the year to cover our Life Moves program until the new program starts with the county. So we won't end at the end of this month. We will continue to move forward seamlessly. So I'm very excited about that. Big win for Millbrae and our Life Moves program. Next week, we have a homeless subcommittee meeting, and we have some agenda items, but I think we can also talk about this and also talk about how we want to give input to the county as they look at enhancements for the outreach team and what maybe models from our success that they can bring to the whole county as they revamp that program. So those are my updates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else? Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, before I get started, can I ask council a question as to, are there any legal, any laws or anything governing what can be said under council comments? Meaning state law, or federal law, or anything that governs comments versus being strictly what we have written. So it says written about committees and things like that, but obviously, usually it's for good of the welfare or something like that. So is there anything that precludes individuals from giving their
No,
thoughts?
there's not. I mean, obviously, the Brown Act, you can't make a motion to do something that's not agendized that. I would point you to the council protocols, though,
yeah.
and there is a statement as to what's appropriate in the council comments, and that seems not just to mention organizational meetings.
Right, yeah, and that's all. I just wanted to make sure to educate the community as well as myself. All right, yeah, so my comment, I attended the ABAG meeting, and we voted on the passed a resolution, proposed a fiscal year 24-25 Association of Bay Area Government Operating Budget and Work Program. And additionally, recently had our Juneteenth celebration. We had a flag raising, a parade that was very successful, and the celebration that went on. And despite there being a mountain lion on the loose, it did not make it to the celebration. Additionally, I'd like to talk about, it was mentioned earlier by Councilwoman Snyder about, the e-bikes and pedestrian safety. And I would love to see us do more on offering opportunities for families to learn more about e-bike safety for our young people. Well, I didn't know this young man. I knew someone that did. Just to talk about the dangers of opioids, vaping, other illicit drugs that our young people are exploring. And so just having an opportunity for some type of conversation and collaboration either with our schools or just a standalone opportunity for parents to learn more about resources that are available to help them. Up next, tonight we heard some baseless, and I guess I would love to hear if there's an opportunity to get some guidance on this, not necessarily tonight, but probably in, directly to council. As tonight we heard some baseless personal attacks, lies, slanderous Jim Crow tactics, and racist tropes by individuals that are given encouragement by other elected officials to do so to gain political favor. And what I'd like to hear is how can we get some type of guidance on the potential legal exposure to our city, to our council, and private individuals, and how to balance free speech and protecting against that type of communication. Additionally, we had an opportunity to discuss tonight at the recommendation, term limits at the recommendation of a council member. We've had residents show up meeting after meeting to get an update or to hear something around the ceasefire. I would like to have some communication. If this council is not going to act, if we're not going to discuss it, at the very least, there should be a level of respect to these individuals that show up meeting after meeting and provide some communication as to where we are and why or why not we're moving forward. And I believe that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Ms. Pappen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see. Commute.org had their meeting, went over their basic plan for the year. They're looking good. Thank you again. I know our city manager was also working with Supervisor Pine on the assistance to helping us fund Life Moves. So thank you, everyone, including the whole board on that one. Attended yesterday a rally put on by Assemblymember Pappen, local elected people, including my colleague, Ms. Cahalan, anniversary of the Dodds decision, women's health care and rights. The county presented Planned Parenthood with $1 million check to allocate funds for technology, equipment, and training staff, and a lot of other beneficial programs to women's health, so that was great. Tomorrow, I will be attending the Metropolitan Transportation Commission meeting, where we will be addressing a housing bond for $20 billion that will likely go to the voters in December. I also attended, before I leave there tomorrow, we will also be bringing up Supervisor Canepa and I have been working hard to receive additional funding for the 101-84 interchange, which feeds into the Port of Redwood City. And if anybody has been to that interchange, it's a spaghetti mess. So redoing that, because all the building materials come through the Port of Redwood City, and that's the building materials for the entire region, is extremely important. We've also been working on funding to help provide or finish off the Broadway grade separation, which is the most dangerous grade separation in the entire state here. So the sad part is the state gave Burlingame $70 million and then they pulled it back. So just getting that funded into the finish line is extremely important to all of us here, because we have grade separations, a lot of people do here too, so we look forward to addressing that further in the future. And we also had a legislative meeting at CCAG. I'm chairing that committee there. We discussed some may have heard the transportation legislation, which failed. So that was a sales tax that they were looking to provide or to assess in all the Bay Area counties. That was pulled back, will not be in this legislative session, but they're trying to shape something for the future where every county benefits. The last go round, we did not benefit. And most of our jurisdiction, CCAG, Samtrans, Caltrain, all opposed it unless amended. None of the amendments were addressed. So hopefully moving forward here, there will be more consideration for local jurisdictions and our county as a whole. I think I had one more thing. Let's see real quick. I apologize. That's it. It's going to be a very busy week. And again, I'd like to remind everybody, July 4th, the Beets and Brews and Vines in Central Park this time. So it should be a wonderful celebration. Please join us all and have a good, safe, sane, I guess the terminology has been, 4th of July. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Councilmember Pappen. First, I wanted to congratulate Commissioner Nathan Chen for being selected as the chair of the Planning Commission for the upcoming year. Thank you so very much for your service. We look forward to working with you more closely. And attended the LEAD API conference in Las Vegas and had the opportunity to engage in discussion with many leaders, many elected officials all over the United States. And had a chance to discuss with the city attorney in San Francisco, David Chu, on how to better implement our housing goals. As you know, San Francisco has their fair share of challenges on those. Reducing red tapes and many legal aspects of the state housing legislation, and how we can better leverage our tools in our toolbox to make housing more affordable and more available to everybody. and discussed with some of the other council members in Southern California, where they also have a sizable ethnic community. And they've had some successful implementation of their language assistance program. And so and they also have some various creative funding options as well. So we learned some new things here. So, and even from some of the state funding. So we're looking forward to discuss with the staff a little later to find ways to implement our language assistance program so that we make it more available and more accessible to our ethnic community, especially the immigrant community who may or may not use English at home. Also engage with many other elected officials from the Bay Area, such as Palo Alto and City Clerk County, and finding ways to strengthen each city's and county's budget. This is one of the topics that's on everybody's mind with the VLF and the prospect of the economy moving forward, how to strengthen and ensuring that our cities and counties' budget are as best as we can. So overall, it was a very successful conference that we get to discuss many different aspects to help move our city forward. So another thing I wanted to kind of bring up is that we need to kind of explore our sister city relationship with Hanyu. I think we've had in the past voted by this council to uplift the relationship from Friendship City to sister cities. Although I don't think it has actually come to fruition, even though the vote was done in the past. So I'd like to explore that and perhaps completing that aspect of the wish, both from the people of Hanyu as well as the people of Millbrae, to upgrade the relationship moving forward. So that's what I have for tonight, and I'd like to close tonight's meeting in memory of our baseball legend, Willie Mays. Thank you so much, everybody, and I adjourn this meeting at 9:21 p.m.